Working as a sound engineer, there are times throughout my career where I felt like the separation between my work life and my personal life hasn't been particularly great, and I'm sure we've all battled with this. I think with any sort of creative field, or really any industry that you work in that you're passionate about and you throw a lot of yourself into, it can be very easy for work to take over and sort of eclipse the rest of your life. And I think for most of us, we need a level of balance in our lives. Like, no matter how passionate we are about something, we still need balance, and we need to have other things that fulfill our needs in different ways. We can't put all our eggs in one basket and get all the fulfillment and enjoyment out of life that we need just from one thing. And I've kind of struggled with this over the years, so I wanted to chat a bit about this in this video, this whole concept, and feeling like your working life kind of takes over. I struggle with this still all the time, but I feel like I'm starting to manage a better work-life balance. And there have been times throughout my career in the past where I definitely think people have seen me as a workaholic. And I've never seen myself personally as that, but I can see why other people would, because I'm very passionate about what I do. Everybody's mileage is going to vary with this, and for some people, they're really passionate about the work that they do. They get all the fulfillment they need just from their working life, and, you know, for whatever reason it might be, they don't need that many personal attachments, or they just don't need as much going on in their personal lives. They're quite happy spending most of their time working. And inherently, there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. I think it just depends on what kind of person you are. I know for myself, I think maybe looking at my younger self, there was a point in time where maybe I was okay with my life mostly being about my working life. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that I do need more balance than that. And, you know, there was definitely a point in time where I allowed my working life to take over my life too much, and that can be a dangerous thing. You know, if you're working in the studio all the time, or you're working in live sound, whatever it is you're doing, we all know this can be quite an antisocial job. You're often working weekends, long hours, working at times when your friends and family and you know, other people around you in your life, all the opportunities to make those kind of connections with people happen at the times that you're going to be at your busiest working. And there was definitely a point in my life, in my younger 20s, where I allowed that to happen too much, and I stopped making enough effort with friends and family. And the problem is, if you're never around, people do start to move on and they start to forget about you. Or, you know, you just never have those opportunities to make those connections in the first place. And as I've gotten older and my life's changed, and, you know, maybe people I know have moved away, or they've just, you know, life's changed for them as well, and they've moved on to different things. We might have grown apart. And, you know, I found myself with an ever dwindling social circle, and then realizing that I didn't really know how to make new connections with people, because I think a lot of that revolves around either, you know, your working life and the connections you make there, or through the hobbies that you have. You know, you find common interests with people, and I realized that I put all of my eggs in one basket there. My hobby was my work, and I didn't really have many hobbies outside of that. Don't get me wrong, like, I like playing video games, I love watching films, I like hiking. There are things I like and that I could find common ground with other people with. It's just knowing how to get yourself out there, and if you spend all your time working, especially in your younger years, and you never give yourself the opportunity to really, like, learn socially how to get yourself out there and put yourself out in the places where you would find common ground with people, it gets a lot harder as you get older, and, you know, life starts to get a lot more like closed in and isolating. So I think it's important to try and not fall into that trap. Everybody's different, and for some people, you know, they're not that interested in having loads of stuff going on in their personal life, and they really get the fulfillment they need from working. There was an interview I read with David Lynch recently, rest in peace, and he was saying that basically, you know, he just loved to work, and really outside about spending time with his wife. He didn't really feel the need to do much socially. His passion was in working, and that was what he wanted to do, and he almost felt a little bit lost when he wasn't working. And you could argue that's because, he never learned how to do stuff socially outside of work. Perhaps that was the case. But I do truly believe that some people can be very happy and content just through working most of their lives, particularly if you are very passionate about the work you do and it's creative and it's fun. I don't think there is necessarily anything wrong with that. But having said that, I think one of the other problems that we can face is that if you're doing one thing all the time, whatever it might be, whether it's your job or your hobby or whatever it is, it can become stale. You can have too much of a good thing, as they say, and it's easy to become jaded and to stop really having the appreciation that you once had for the stuff that you have around you and the opportunities that you have. I know I've had that in the past, and it's something I still struggle with sometimes to this day, not getting overly jaded, trying to find ways to keep things fresh. I've tried to recognise more that, particularly in live sound, where I've done a lot of my work over the years, there's not the same fulfillment or enjoyment for me with certain types of gigs. Say smaller shows where I've done that kind of gig a million times before, working in some little dive bar, some not very good bands or whatever, and crappy sounding PA. I cut my teeth in my earlier years doing that kind of thing, but I kind of grew past that and moved on to bigger and better things. But sometimes I still have to take those kind of gigs, and they're just not that enjoyable for me generally anymore. The way you deal with that, I guess, is by trying to find yourself, putting yourself in new and fresh and exciting situations by continuing to evolve in your career and grow and learn and challenge yourself. Don't allow yourself to get too comfortable. But also, I think, from having personal attachments outside of work, having friends outside of your industry, friends that you share different interests with, and that helps. I think it feeds back into your work, helps you feel inspired, because we need to take inspiration from different outlets and from going through different life experiences, I think. And I feel like I've struggled with, at points, people just viewing me as Mark, the sound engineer. And maybe that's because I have a small group of friends, I have a small family, and so comparatively within my line of work, I have many peers, many people that I know by association, many people that I get along with, and that I would call friends, I suppose, but not in the same way as my friends in my personal life, because that circle I have around me in my line of work is much bigger, and I think most of those people would see me, same as if I think of any other people I know in the industry, I would think of them as so-and-so the sound tech, so-and-so the guitarist or the drummer, whatever. And you do kind of see them in that way. This might just be me. I don't know whether other people would relate to this, but that can feel a little bit lonely sometimes when people just view you as one thing, when actually there's, a lot more to me as a person. And there are times when I feel like I'm not seen in that way, and I'd like to be able to be seen in that way through making sure that you do spend enough time with family and friends so that you are seen in that way and life doesn't get too lonely. Because if you spend all your time working, it is quite likely that you'll just be seen as, Mark the sound engineer, whatever job it is you're doing in the industry, people will just see you that way. It's not a bad thing inherently, but I just think there is more to most people than just one facet of their life. So, yeah, interesting subject, I think. Sound out in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Have you experienced kind of similar struggles? Let me know in the comments. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel. That always helps me out. And I'll see you again in the next video.